Man, are y'all ready for this BS story here? Let me tell you about these kids, these 20-year-old college dropouts. They built a 28 unit real estate portfolio with less than $1,000 savings combined. These guys, Caleb Hommel, hopefully I got his name correct, and Chuck Sotelo. And I just want to tell you the backstory and what really happened and kind of expose the situation with what's going on with them. Hey, if you're new to the channel, my name is Ray Woods, Real Estate with Ray, where I kind of give you the backstory of my journey and teach you and educate those who want to get involved in real estate investing. Now, in this particular video, we're going to kind of twist it a little bit and give an insight from my perspective and my experience on what really happened and how these guys were able to build a 28 unit rental portfolio that's worth over $2 million or so. So the first thing that they did, it was in college, they was in junior college, and they was like, you know what? I need to look at real estate investing. This was during the pandemic times when they was in school. School was online, and they decided to go after the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now, for those you don't know or haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it is one of the best books, if not the best books, on financial education, teach you about assets and liabilities. If you haven't gotten that book, I'll put a link in the description so you can go grab that book. The second thing they did was they went out and joined a multifamily strategy real estate group, and that's kind of what it's called, multifamilystrategy.com. Now, the group was a meetup group that they maybe just Googled or maybe just found in their area, and they went to join that group to learn more about real estate. Now, to kind of give you some past history of that particular group that they joined, you had these two guys here, and I got some information here on the computer. You have Cody Davis that started he had less than $3,000 in his account with connections. Okay, that's the key word. He had connections at 19 years old, and he was able to acquire 105 units through creative financing with the connections that he had. But his partner, Christian, he had started getting into real estate at 29, but he didn't start acquiring units until he was about 30. So by the time the age was 30, he had about 95 units, and he had no connections. You had two different people, two different stories. One basically had no connections. The other already had connections, which kind of gave him the leverage to acquire so many more units at such an early age compared to Christian, where he's almost, or actually a decade older than Cody. So Caleb and Chuck, those guys ended up joining that meetup. And at the time, I believe it was like $250 a month, I think what I read on Business Insider. And currently now it's $350 if you go to their website right now. They joined the mentorship program. They joined the group with the guys Cody and Christian. And they proceeded to learn from those guys and take the next steps. Now, the steps to acquiring their first deal, what they did was they went out to choose a market. They stayed in California. Another one was from Texas. They say, you know what? We're finna look at these different areas. And they decided ultimately to go down to Texas. They went to South Texas. Now, I don't know what part of South Texas, but there are many parts of South Texas with knowing that Texas is a freaking huge state. So they analyzed the whole entire state. They chose South Texas to start doing business in. So 6 months in, they closed on their first deal. So let me rephrase. 6 months and 500 calls later, they closed their first deal. Now, mind you, 6 months to close their first deal is pretty fast, right? It's pretty fast for somebody that's new getting into real estate, but 500 calls is a lot of calls. Now, to combat that and to play devil's advocate, you do have softwares out here like Mojo Dollar where you can dial 400 numbers or so within an hour. So maybe they was using a Google Voice, maybe they was using their own phone number and dialing it one by one as to why it took 6 months and 500 calls when you can get 400 to 500 calls within a day's time. Personally, my virtual assistant that calls for my wholesale operation, he makes 400 or 500 calls within just a couple of hours. So maybe they didn't have access or didn't want to spend the money that they had in savings to get that Mojo Dollar. So that's just an option that they could have done, but instead they may have chose an individual route, which took so long to make those calls. Now, mind you, these guys are 19 years old, right? Imagine being 19 years old. You have $1,000 in your savings account, combined, two people. You can't get a bank loan. You got maybe some college debt from junior college, and then you dropped out. So you don't even have access to getting a better paying job with a degree because you don't have a degree. And how can you get this money? How can you get into real estate? That's the question that everybody wants to know. How can you get into real estate if you have none of this going on and you don't have any money in your bank account to even buy a meal for yourself for a month or so? let alone buy some real estate. The deal that they did was a $900,000 deal. Now you got $1,000 in your bank account and you want to go buy a property that's 900 grand. People don't qualify to even buy $250,000 properties. So how in the hell can these two kids buy a $900,000, what is it, 10 unit apartment, 10 unit building, multifamily in South Texas? How did they do that? Let me explain. There's a little thing called creative financing. And a bunch of investors online talk about this. Anybody from John D to Pace Morby. Pace Morby is one of the biggest guys in the field in real estate now that do creative financing. And what they initially or ultimately did with the seller, they finally found a seller that agreed to terms, and it was 10% down. I don't know the balloon payments. I don't know what kind of interest they had, but they needed 10% down to get the deal. They can't get a bank loan, so what can you do? Go raise capital. You go raise capital through the connections you have. So they don't have any money in this deal up until this point, right? They go raise capital. Where do they find the people with this much money? The majority of people don't know people with 30,000, 60,000, 100,000 plus just sitting in their account. They don't know those type of people. The connections that they had in the multifamily strategy mentorship program is where they had the connections. It is all about, and I'll repeat this over and over again, it is all about who you know. And I'm not putting anything down on these guys because they put in the hustle, but the key thing that a lot of people miss over is it's all about who you know. And so they knew individuals in that mentorship program who had already had experience in real estate or wanted to invest in real estate, and they had the backing of those guys, Cody Davis and Christian, for that mentorship program to go and help raise the capital. And even if they didn't, they learned from Cody and Christian to be able to structure a conversation to talk to somebody that's interested in investing into a deal and raising the capital from people. Now they closed on the 10 unit September 22nd, September 2022, and they had 3 investors on the deal. Each one of them put up 30 grand. These individuals are able to get into a deal without any money out of their pocket, but they had to have the connections first to go raise the capital. For those who don't have those connections, the easiest way for you to go get those connections, like I say in my previous videos, and I'll put the card up here in the link, when it comes to networking with people and finding individuals that you can learn from that's been in the business and that's willing to work with you and put money on a deal, especially if the deal is going to make them money. This is why they was able to get into a deal with no money and be so young doing it. They was exposed to this type of information. They was exposed to these types of group when the majority of people are not. They're working a job. They're working a 9 to 5. You have kids. You're going to school. You're stuck in that mindset of, I need to get this degree because I graduated with a mechanical engineering degree. I didn't know anything about real estate until I was the age of 24, 25 really after I graduated. And so those individuals, these 2 kids, they ended up learning about that a lot earlier. And so they was able to get into the real estate space a lot earlier. They had 2 other deals they closed on shortly after that. It was another deal that was an 8 unit, $700,000. And then another deal that was a 10 unit that was $725,000. And I will agree on what they said in this little passage here. They stated, the goal is to hit as many units as we can this year, while making sure we don't buy a bad deal in this current environment. It's very hard to find deals that are making sense right now because of the divide there is between buyers and sellers' expectation. You guys could not be more correct on that. The market is very difficult. There are a lot of cash deals that don't make any sense. So creative financing is the way that you can get into a deal. And it's the way that anybody can get into a deal. You find the people that have the money. You find the right deal that's going to make sense. You talk with them. You're able to collaborate. And then you can get the deal done with no money in your pocket. Me and my team are always looking for deals over here in the Atlanta market. We're always looking for people to partner on. We have plenty of people in the network that have the capital to get onto these deals. So if you do have something, reach out to me. I got my Instagram link in the description. Reach out to me if you have a deal or so. Just message me on there. I'm pretty responsive on there. Now, a few other things that they said that I really disagree with. They said, it's hard to have a worse start than Chuck and I did. A lot of people are in better spots than that. So I definitely think anybody can get started in real estate. It's just going out there and taking action. Now, although I do agree with not just being a seminar junkie, getting information and taking action, I don't agree with your situation is not as worse as you think it can get. You just have not come across people who are in worse situations. Now, I won't get into details on that, but somebody around you has it worse. I would like to say with a grain of salt that you was slightly privileged in being able to understand and get exposed to this type of information at an early age. Now, when I say privilege, I don't mean that in a bad way. You just was able to open up your mind a lot sooner than others and not have too many distractions. Because the next question is going to come, if you was able to find these properties and you doing, I believe they said they was doing DoorDash and only making $400 a month or so, how was you paying for bills? Was you staying with family? Did you have somebody to take care of you? Did you have the phone bill that you was paying? Because eventually it took, I believe, 60 days for them to close, but they raised the money in 30 days. And it took them months to find a first deal. So your bills must have been super low, if non-existent. So who was it that was helping you keep a foundation under your feet so you can focus on that? Because when I started in real estate, I didn't have anybody to help me keep my foundation up. I had to go work a job. When I was unemployed, I had to go show houses and get dollars here and there while living off of unemployment, while trying to make something happen and doing Uber and Lyft to try to pay for bills. So it was so much chaos. So I would like to know, what is it that they did? They don't say this piece. This is the information you know, but I will say they have some type of foundation to help them. Guys, if you enjoyed that video, go ahead and give me a like. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll be bringing more stories like this, and I'll be having some more videos talking about my real estate journey, how I can educate you and for you to get into this business, because it's not all sunshines and rainbows. It's not all as easy as you think. But for my experience, I can show you easier ways to get into this business and tell you the truth about that so you know what's to come. Until then, I'll see you guys on my next video.